Imagine you're the most powerful woman in the kingdom, sleeping in silk sheets worth more than most people's houses, surrounded by luxury beyond imagination. Now imagine deliberately placing live, squeaking mice into your bed every single night. What if I told you that medieval queens actually did this? And the reason why will make your skin crawl and your stomach turn. What sounds like a nightmare was actually considered essential for royal health. But the truth behind this practice is far more disturbing than you could ever imagine. Today, we're uncovering the absolutely revolting, medically horrifying, and genuinely shocking truth about why medieval queens deliberately shared their beds with rodents. This isn't just about strange historical customs. This is about a practice so grotesque that modern doctors would be horrified, yet it was considered absolutely essential for royal women's survival. By the time you understand the real reason behind this nauseating tradition, you'll never look at medieval medicine the same way again. In medieval Europe, between the 12th and 15th centuries, royal women lived in a world where medical knowledge was a bizarre mix of ancient superstition, religious doctrine, and dangerous experimentation. Their bodies were not their own. They belonged to kingdoms desperate for heirs, and every aspect of their health was scrutinized, manipulated, and treated with methods that would shock modern medicine. What you're about to hear isn't just one strange practice. It's a window into an era when the human body was viewed as a battlefield between competing humors, evil spirits, and mysterious forces that could only be controlled through the most disturbing means imaginable. Picture this. It's 1347, and Queen Philippa of Hainault, wife of King Edward III of England, is preparing for bed in her lavish chamber at Windsor Castle. The room is draped in the finest tapestries, warmed by braziers filled with glowing coals, and the bed itself is a masterpiece of carved wood draped with silk curtains. But as her ladies-in-waiting prepare the royal bedchamber, they perform a ritual that would horrify us today. They carefully place several live mice into small cloth pouches and tuck them into the bed linens. This wasn't cruelty or madness. This was medicine. Medieval physicians believed that the human body was governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Any illness was caused by an imbalance of these humors, and women, especially royal women expected to produce heirs, were considered particularly vulnerable to cold and moist humors that could make them barren or cause miscarriages. Here's where it gets truly disgusting. Mice were considered hot and dry creatures that could absorb the excess cold and moisture from a woman's body while she slept. The idea was that the mice would literally suck the bad humors out of the queen's body through proximity, warming her womb and balancing her internal temperature. But the reality was far more revolting than even this theory suggests. The mice weren't just placed in the bed. They were often sewn into small linen bags and positioned directly against the queen's bare skin, particularly around her abdomen and lower back. The bags would be tied to her nightgown or tucked into the bedding so they couldn't escape during the night. Imagine the sensation. Tiny claws scratching against fabric, the constant squeaking and movement, and the smell. Oh, the smell. Medieval chroniclers describe how the mice would often die during the night from the heat and pressure, creating a putrid odor that permeated the royal bedchamber. The queen would wake up with dead rodents pressed against her body, their tiny corpses supposedly having absorbed all her dangerous humors. Court physicians took this practice even further. They believed that if the mice died during the night, it proved the treatment was working. The rodents had sacrificed themselves to save the queen from her dangerous humoral imbalance. If the mice survived, it meant the queen needed more treatment, so they would increase the number of mice or add other hot creatures like small birds or even young puppies. Some royal physicians recommended that the queen should sleep with different animals on different nights based on her menstrual cycle. Fresh mice for the first week, slightly older mice for the second week, and pregnant mice for the third week, because they believed pregnant animals could transfer their fertility to the queen through humoral exchange. What makes this practice even more horrifying is that queens had no choice in the matter. Refusing medical treatment could be seen as endangering the kingdom's succession, potentially treasonous if she failed to produce heirs. Imagine being told by your royal physicians that you must sleep with live rodents pressed against your naked body night after night. while knowing that your ability to fulfill your royal duty depended on enduring this nauseating ordeal. Queen Isabella of France, wife of Edward II, reportedly wept during her first mouse treatment, but her physicians told her that crying would make her humors even more unbalanced, requiring additional animals in her bed. The psychological trauma of being forced to endure this treatment, combined with the physical revulsion, created a cycle of stress that likely made conception even more difficult. Here's the most shocking part. This practice was not only disgusting, but potentially deadly. Medieval mice carried diseases like plague, typhus, and various parasites. By placing live rodents directly against their skin, queens were exposing themselves to potentially fatal infections. The very treatment meant to help them conceive could kill them. Court records from the 14th century show that several queens died from mysterious fevers shortly after intensive mouse treatments. Modern medical historians believe these deaths were likely caused by infections transmitted directly from the rodents. The cure was literally worse than the disease. What makes this story even more disturbing is how it was hidden from history. Royal courts were extremely secretive about medical treatments, especially those involving the queen's fertility. Most of what we know comes from private letters between court physicians, scattered medical texts, and occasional mentions in chronicles that were never meant for public consumption. The practice was so embarrassing that even medieval people, who accepted many bizarre medical treatments, rarely wrote about it openly. It was considered too intimate, too revolting, and too politically dangerous to document fully. From the silk-draped beds of English queens to the stone castles of French royalty, from the desperate attempts to secure succession to the blind faith in medieval medicine. The practice of sleeping with mice reveals a world where royal women's bodies were experimental laboratories for the most nauseating medical theories imaginable. These queens endured not just the physical revulsion of live rodents against their skin, but the psychological torture of knowing their royal duty demanded they submit to treatments that modern medicine recognizes as potentially deadly. Their suffering reminds us that behind every crown lies a human being, and that the pursuit of power often demands sacrifices that history prefers to forget. The next time you think about the glamour of royal life, remember the medieval queens who lay awake at night feeling tiny claws and whiskers against their skin, all in the name of duty, medicine, and the desperate hope that this time the treatment might actually work. What do you think? Could you have endured what these queens faced? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more disturbing secrets from history's shadows.